Hello, everyone, and welcome to Automate Live 2024. We're here in Chicago at McCormick Place. My name is Jana Martin. I am the Media Production Manager here at A3, and I'm joined by my colleague, Deb Kling, the Vice President of Marketing.
I am so excited to be here, Jana, and the doors have just opened, and we should start seeing a flood of people coming in for our first day here at Automate.
That's right. Come in and check out the over 800 exhibitors that we have here on the show floor. And Deb, I don't know about you, but I got to walk around a little bit yesterday while we were setting up, and there is some really cool stuff you want to get down here and check out.
Absolutely. We have so much innovation on this floor, things that we weren't even expecting to see, whether it's vision, motion control, robotics, obviously artificial intelligence, AI. The show is just showing everything that's new and the latest and greatest.
And we want to thank our sponsors, of course, for making all of this possible. Siemens, Ericsson, Fanuc, Harmonic Drive, Schneider Electric, ABB, KUKA, Universal Robots, and Yaskawa Motoman, just to name a few. Thank you.
Just to name a few. And right behind us, we have the Automate Theater, and there is a lot of coverage that we will see there, starting here today at 10:30 this morning. Later this afternoon, we have an Innovation Awards program just to expand on the whole innovation. We've broken it down to the hardware, software, and system categories, and we're excited to show the show floor here what's latest and greatest.
And we will actually have some of those Innovation Award winners here on the Automate Live desk later this week. You'll be back here to interview one of them.
I will.
Jimmy and I will be interviewing another one, so really excited for that. Speaking of awards and competitions, also going to be happening here behind us tomorrow. We have the startup competition.
That's
it's
right.
back.
The startup competition is back, always super popular, and there were, I don't remember, at least 50 people with startups that came through,
Wow.
and so we'll be awarding that winner live tomorrow.
Very exciting. That's going to be tomorrow afternoon. Of course, you can find all schedules and information at automateshow.com. And of course, register free if you haven't already. What you want to make sure to get down here for in the mornings, though, if you missed today we had Billy Bean as our keynote speaker, the Oakland A's. It was incredible. But Deb, tell us about who we can expect the rest of the week.
Absolutely. We've got Del Costi coming in from Siemens tomorrow morning at 9 to do the keynote, and then super excited to mention that we have two lady keynotes on Wednesday and Thursday. So we have Wendy Tan White. I forget if she's Thursday or Wednesday.
Thursday,
She's Thursday.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. And she's with Intrinsic. And then we also have Daniela Russ with MIT, who will be here on Wednesday.
Incredible. And speaking of women's and women's empowerment, Deb, you've been really instrumental in putting together the Women's Empowerment Forum that's going to kick things off early on Wednesday morning. Unfortunately, it's so popular, it already sold out.
It did sell out, and we're so excited. We have some great panel and some keynotes, and we will just be talking about being a woman in this industry. But A3 in general, we're really looking into and working with all of our members on expanding DEI in our industry.
That's right. Now, speaking of other special events we have, today, of course, is the big opening party. We want to see you there. We're really excited from A3 to be celebrating 50 years as an association in this industry.
Absolutely. And NVIDIA is also sponsoring tonight, and we're really excited. That networking party is always fun and always a great way for all these exhibitors to network with each other. So we're expecting a big crowd tonight.
It's going to be big, and also big and sold out is the Engelberger Awards, but we want to shout out and mention the winners. 3 incredible robotics innovators are winning that award this Wednesday night.
Absolutely.
So we're really excited for them. Of course, as we mentioned, there's so much going on here. There's AMR demos. There are hundreds of conference sessions happening about every aspect in this industry.
Yes,
the nitty-gritty.
The nitty-gritty. And the conference is... It runs concurrently with the show. It's a little bit extra money to come to the conference, but you can get your certifications. You can learn a lot more about AI. We have a brand new how AI is implemented in the industry, not just in the world, but specifically for our industry. So we definitely encourage you to come out and check out the conference schedule. We have more educational, we have so much going on through education, and A3 has really expanded in that area. We have Educator Day on Wednesday, where we have hundreds of educators coming in and working with our members and our exhibitors on how to develop programs for students to get excited about this industry. And as you know, Thursday we've got the students coming,
Yes.
and they're touring. We have hundreds of students touring the different booths, and we drop them at the Educator Pavilion, which has a bunch of universities and a bunch of sponsors, and you can really get your hands on. Kids have a lot of fun here that day.
It's incredible to see the kids get to see all of this
Yeah.
technology and kind of put together what the possibilities could be, what kind of fun jobs and opportunities
Exactly.
are out there to work with this cool technology.
Agreed.
We are so excited about everything happening here this week. Right here at this desk, we're going to have the influencers coming up soon, going to be talking about workforce innovations. So Ann Wyatt, Chris Lukey, and we're also going to have a special guest on that panel as
Oh.
well. So
Surprise.
stay tuned to A3 LinkedIn Live and Automate Show YouTube all week, and we're going to have a great week here at Automate.
A3 has had a huge impact on the automation industry, and I benefited through my company, General Motors, who used that information and that association to further develop and advance robotics technology. A3 brought together all of the different supplier companies which could deliver the technology. The human capital, the people that knew how they operated and could work with them, and it had a big positive impact on the success of General Motors, and clearly it had a big positive impact on many other companies and the industry as a whole. had a huge impact on the automation industry, and I benefited through my company, General Motors, who used that information, that association, to further develop and advance robotics technology. A3 brought together all of the different supplier companies which could deliver the technology. The human capital of people that knew how they operated and could work with them, and it had a big positive impact on the success of General Motors, and clearly it had a big positive impact on many other companies and the industry as a whole.
All right, good morning. Welcome everyone to Automate Live. Our first discussion here, our first in-depth discussion. We're going to be talking about creating a culture that attracts and retains talent. I couldn't be happier for the folks that we have joining me here today to discuss this topic. To my far left, your right, is Travis Miller of Miller Resource Group. We're also joined by Ann Wyatt of Ann Wyatt Recruiting. So excellent to be here. And this is gonna be a bit of a roundtable discussion as we get into it. So my first question, Travis, I'm gonna throw it to you, and then Ann, I'd love to hear from you after this. But the first question is, when it comes to the automation industry, what's one thing you see companies doing well right now when it comes to attracting and retaining talent?
It's a great question, Chris, and great to be up here with you.
Oh, thank you. You as well.
One thing that I've seen companies do more and more lately is focus a lot less on the hard skills. When they're searching for people for their team, they're able to focus more on the soft skills, the culture, the person that they're hiring, and not the resume. And with that, I noticed that when people really focus on the specific background, they have to have A experience, B experience, C experience, this education, and there's no deviating from it. They're really hiring for a person's success in their first 6 months. Because if they have a lot of what you need in their background, but they're missing a good chunk of it too, how much of that can you train in a person's first 3 months, in their first 6 months, and get them ramped up and moving and they're a great culture fit. Versus if it's only focused on the hard skills, then a person is more likely to be successful quickly, but there's a lot more possibility for that person to be a cultural cancer down the road.
And what would you add to that?
I think those are some great points, Travis. And first of all, Chris, thank you so much for that warm introduction. That's fantastic. Travis, it's great to be here with you as
Likewise.
well. Honored to be sitting on this panel with
You're
you.
making me blush.
I think to Travis's point, a lot of what he is saying about focusing on the hard skill sets, I'm definitely seeing some shifting and some flexibility there as well. And that is something that I try to nurture too. I'm sure you all try to have those conversations, but for all of our HR friends out there listening today, this is something that, you really have to look at and understand there are some things that, while there's going to be a training and a learning curve anyway, there are other things maybe you're not going to find with the candidate pool and the labor market being so tight right now. So those are important to keep in mind. One thing, though, that I have noticed with companies and hiring as far as culture is that they are also becoming flexible in other ways. And I think that this is a huge win for us in this industry, automation, manufacturing, because traditionally we have been so stringent on making sure that we have this really inflexible schedule, right? You've got your 12s, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we have really started to, in recruiting, we're looking at the person. Now that they're the employee, we're starting to treat them as the person as well. And understanding things came up, we are human. So if we have to leave and come back and run our kiddos somewhere, maybe they get sick, we're free to do that. We're a little bit more flexible on even in interviews. I've seen like a couple, maybe there have been some miscommunications with interview scheduling and things like that. And things happen, and we have to really get there, I think, to understand, things are going to happen. Life is messy. Life is not perfect. And I'm so happy to see that in our industry. I'm so happy to see that growth there. So that's something I'm proud of.
I like the first two things you've said, Travis. You brought up the shift from focusing just on hard skills to focusing more on soft skills. And I think it's great that you brought up flexibility, right? It can, if let's say you're a caregiver, let's say you're a single parent, right? A traditional manufacturing job with the traditional hours might not be the fit that you were looking for back in the day. Since the topic of conversation here is what are companies doing right now when it comes to their culture, the thing I'll add is I think that manufacturing companies are doing a great job of showcasing the people that work for the company and elevating the personal brands of the folks that are there. Travis, at Miller Resource Group, you are an example of a company that I see does a really good job of humanizing your company because each individual in your organization is very forward-facing. I see a lot of their personality in it, and I think that gives me an overall vision of the type of company that Miller Resource is. And I'm glad to see that this isn't a trend just across, like, say, a recruiting firm like yours, but automation companies, robotics companies. I'm seeing more great examples of leaders elevating the people there and that contributing to the overall culture as well. Because as someone that worked for a company for a long time before I started my own business, one of the things that attracted me to working with that organization was I was able to share my own voice and elevate the organization while I was there.
Well, I think it's one of the best ways to advertise your company culture. Companies, they spend so much money, time, and investment marketing their product to their customers. But it's really difficult to market your company as a place to go and work, to market your employment brand. And the best way to do that is to allow your people to be themselves and put themselves out there to be your brand ambassador. And, if you follow Miller Resource Group, if you follow the people at Miller Resource Group, and you see John Freeman in his ghillie suit posting these wild videos about hunting for sales engineers, you kind of get a feeling for what our company culture is. And if you prefer an environment that is relatively buttoned up and incredibly professional, well, Miller Resource Group might not be the place for you. But if you can get excited about the technology of the companies that we're working with, and you see voices like mine, like John's, out there showcasing their personality of who we are, then people who are looking for companies like ours can get excited about it. And if people are interviewing with us and they check us out, they're going to get a good sense of who we are and whether or not we're an organization that they could get excited about being a part of.
Yeah, I see that a lot too, Travis, and I think that kind of plays into company branding on a larger scale. But for example, if I have an organization out there, what are your thoughts on 2 or 3 people representing that organization as opposed to, like, how do you make it more about the collective representation of your organization?
That's a great question, and kind of a difficult one to answer because you don't want to force it on anyone. There are plenty of people out in this world who are wildly successful at what they do, and creating content just isn't in their purview. It's not something they want to do. It's not something they're particularly good at. It's not a skill set they're interested in developing. And that's fine. It's not for everybody. One thing I did a couple of years ago in height of pandemic, and we bought into this, personal branding, creating content. But I knew that a lot of people, that's not their skill set. But we're so comfortable on camera these days. Zoom calls are a thing. And so that was how I started the podcast 2 or 3 years ago, was as a vehicle to help our people create content. So originally I was just going to interview the people at our company because they can talk to me. Just turn on the camera like it's a Zoom call. We're going to chat, and we're going to get some good pieces of content. There's going to be plenty of great ideas to put out there into the world. I work with some very, very smart people, much smarter than me. They have great ideas. I do an okay job of getting those ideas out of people. And then it kind of snowballed, but if you can help people create content to help get their story out there about who they are, what role they play in an organization, not only from a business perspective, but from a heart perspective as well, I think that's something that leadership can do to help amplify the voice of their people, versus if you're reliant on 1 or 2 people doing it all, then you're not really getting the voice of the company. You're getting the voice of part of it, and unfortunately you lose the risk of that voice going away if that's all people are used to seeing.
One thing that I think of when it comes to the different voices, the different personalities at an organization, to this question, and when we're talking about, hey, does it make sense to have, let's say, the culture be representative of 1 of 2 individuals there, or many individuals at the company? As a longtime salesperson, I always think of this in the context of sales first and foremost, where the big strengths of having personal brands showcasing your culture, all of a sudden, if you're going after multiple markets, I feel like something I hear from sales folks or marketers is like, oh, well, everyone would buy our product, right? Food and beverage, automotive, you name your industry, right? Everyone's attractive to us. It's like, well, first of all, you kind of got to pick a lane. You're going to be more successful if you niche down. But one of the beautiful things about having personal brands being showcasing the people within an organization, maybe one person is the automotive expert. Maybe one person is the semiconductor expert. So all of a sudden, you're able to go after those markets or be seen as more trustworthy of those markets because they see a human that really understands that industry. Since we're talking about culture and attracting and retaining talent, the same thing I feel goes for people in that regard that you'd want to bring onto your team. Maybe someone's a little more technical. Maybe they're more so the engineering type. That's going to be great for attracting the next engineer to your organization. Maybe they see that forward-thinking marketer, that forward-thinking salesperson. That can attract the next breed of marketers and salespeople to an organization. At least those are some of my thoughts.
I got a question about that because I think that can be difficult for a lot of people, because a lot of the people who are more comfortable doing stuff like this, being in front of a camera, are the salespeople, are the people in marketing who have that skill set. And they generally don't have as much technical knowledge as a lot of the engineers, product development, operations people. How do they create technical content that is valuable to their industry when their expertise isn't necessarily the technical side of it, but how to sell or brand or market the technical piece of it?
So I can speak to that a little bit if that's all right. But I've seen several companies leverage their HR departments and the recruiting departments within their organizations to do some content creation, or maybe the marketing department does the content creation, but then they do kind of their own kind of like influencing thing. And then it supports and builds the brand on an individual level. Those individuals build up a following. But then they also have other members of the organization always engaging into the content. So maybe it's somebody that, you have that individual who's more introverted and they don't want to make content. That's not their thing, right? But then you leverage your HR department to kind of be that influencing arm and have other employees engage. And I think this is a great opportunity for the technical side of things, because that's true. I think that when you're going out and you're recruiting, you're looking for specific individuals that fit a specific skill set. I think that you have to really showcase your company and what you do. So I love it when I see companies and brands out there not only leveraging their HR department, their recruiting department to do this, but I love it when they're going out on the floor and they're taking content on the floor. And I love it when they're going out on the floor and they're getting employee testimonials from the floor. And those people, maybe they work in different departments of the plant. Maybe they're machine operators. Maybe they're forklift driver. Maybe they're in quality. But having that myriad of voices can really impact your culture, your brand awareness, and also really people see that and they're like, I want to go work there because that looks like a really nice place to work. It looks like they really care about their people. And I think, at the end of the day in recruiting, that's a huge box on candidates' lists when they're looking. Do you come across that?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think the companies that almost worry about it less, like they're just going to do it. You see so many organizations have these beautifully produced corporate brand cultural videos, and they're wonderful. But they do them once every 2 or 3 years. It lives on their website. It lives buried on a YouTube channel mainly, but people don't see it unless they're seeking it. Versus, if you don't really worry about it, you just like to showcase your people and your company and you're proud of the voices and the culture, and you do it regularly on an ad hoc basis, just very unprofessionally. You just need a phone to do it. That's
Right.
where you can really capture what the essence of a company's culture is.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you're saying, authentic content, real content. Yes, have the polished corporate branding, if you will. People need a logo. They need that,
Yeah.
so the company is recognizable and there needs to be consistency there. One thing I like that you brought up, just taking out your phone and using that to create content, because I think some people often get worried that if they say the wrong thing one more time, like if they say the wrong thing one time, that's going to be the piece of content that goes viral and it's going to derail everything they've ever built up to that point. The reality is it's probably not going to happen because like most content doesn't go viral, right? What I see as a successful thing is you just iterate, right? Maybe someone who has a personal brand at that company and has an audience and has a voice, maybe they say something that's 75% in line with the company brand, right? Don't get upset at them for that. Be like, hey, I love that piece of content. I love this and that. Hey, next time let's tweak this a little bit, because that makes it more of a, hey, let's keep doing this and let's keep being consistent, getting the word out about our organization, showcasing the culture. And I think you brought up a great point about leveraging the HR department. I think it's leveraging other groups that maybe, we were giving the example of a technical individual that's maybe not as camera facing as we are, but at the end of the day, you can extract knowledge from them and still showcase what that person knows. Maybe it's you're interviewing them for a blog post, right? And you're going to showcase their knowledge that way. One trick I like doing is I always film the behind the scenes before I actually hit record as well, because you might get some candid feedback from that person or some candid insights that just feel really supernatural that might not have come out if that person knew they had already gone live, right? In worst case scenario, you don't use that content, but those are a couple tricks I've seen as being a way to get more of that out there. I'm going to shift gears here with our next discussion because we're here, we're live at Automate with the Association for Advancing Automation. And one of the things I have to ask is this is a showcase of technology, but I also feel like events like this are a showcase of culture. What do you learn about people's culture while you're here at an event? Travis, you look like you're thinking on this and you might have one, and then Ann, we'll go to you after that.
That's a good question. And I think that it's how do you see individuals interact with each other in their booth? You know, because in this day and age, with so many people working outside of the office, working all across the country, there's a good chance this is one of only a handful of times that they're all together throughout the year. And if you're looking at an organization and you see people working together, you see them collaborating, you see them talking to customers together, I think you get a pretty good sense of how that organization works together versus if you see a handful of people sitting apart from each other, scrolling on their phone, answering emails. You also get a good sense of how they work together. And, I mean, what do you see?
Can I tell you a story, Travis?
I love stories.
Okay. So we were at an event earlier this year, and some of our other friends were there as well. But we were just kind of walking through the main hallway there, the entrance, as we go there, and we see this person that is dressed up in something very not what you would expect at a trade show. And they looked like John Lennon. And we were like, why is this person dressed up like this? And then we see a couple more. And these people are dressed up, as different things. We follow them. We are so curious. And we followed them back to their booth. And I love this story because when we got back to the booth, we found out that every year that sales team in that booth picked a different theme and dressed up. And that year it was the Beatles. And it was just really cool because they were all you could tell they were so into it. And I love to see that because to me, I'm walking away from that booth and I'm like, you know what, that is something special,
What era Beatles were they dressed up as?
There was, I believe, the Yellow Submarine.
Okay.
We saw that, and we saw the Yoko era.
Oh gosh.
And we saw
You're saying they covered the spectrum of Beatle lore,
every
basically.
single one of them was dressed up as a different Beatle era, and it was just fantastic. It was just such a feel-good moment.
Well, I think this showcases that there are very tangible embodiments of culture, right? There's dressing up, there's having a theme to the booth, for example. That's one thing you can get out of being at the event. And Travis, you also just talked about, honestly, it kind of goes back to your initial conversation around soft skills. What are the soft things that are happening at the booth that are showcasing? How does this team work together? Are people disengaged? Are they on their phones? Or do you have a group that's really like, oh, we're glad you're here. So-and-so is an expert in this area. You got to talk to them. Is there laughing? Is there, it's almost like an intangible vibe you get when you walk into that booth.
Well, isn't that the essence of what culture is? It's how people work together. Everything else is just this, almost a symptom of what the culture is. Culture isn't, I'm sick of the example, but it's not ping pong tables. But
Yeah.
it can be a sign of it. If it's an organization that really likes not only working together, but playing together, spending time together, doing activities together, a ping pong table actually can be part of the culture. It's when corporate says, here's a ping pong table, this is our culture, that's
They define
when
the
it's window
thing,
dressing.
and they're replacing the, the connection with a thing.
yes.
Right.
Well, it could be the ping pong table. I think I'll double down on it's almost the feeling you get when you walk into a booth, when you walk into an office. Like when I walk into the Miller Resource Group office, like you got the mural in the back, you've got collaboration, you have a podcast studio. It feels like a place where creativity thrives. And I think that's the type of thing, whether it's creativity, whether it's innovation, there are a lot of feelings you can get there, but you want it to embody some type of feeling. So we're at just about probably the 8-minute mark. So I think we probably have time for like 2 more discussion points. So I'm gonna kick this next one off. And Ann, we'll start with you on this one. When it comes to recruiting, how do you work with teams on prioritizing skill sets amongst the hiring team? This is on really more the recruiting side, and I think both of you will be able to talk to this significantly better than I could.
So that is something that I think Travis kind of started our discussion with. That's something that I still see a little bit resistance in. As a recruiter, and Travis knows this very well, but as a recruiter, when you're taking a job order and you're meeting with the client, it's really important that you sit down with them and you look at things like hard skill set and soft skill set. And you identify things like what, not just the hard skills, but what KPIs, for example, that they're going to have to meet. What is the culture like? Who is going to be a good fit for this role? So one of the things that I really try to do when I'm working with that client one-on-one is I want to prioritize their entire list. Now, with a hiring team, obviously, you've got multiple people that come into play. When they're sitting together and they're like trying to make a hiring decision about one candidate. And so multiple people may have different things that they're looking for. So really getting everyone on that same page and having those honest conversations that I'm sure Travis has had to have a lot of as well. And really say, okay, I understand everyone's needs. We need your top 3. We need your top 5. So that's something that I try to do is just basically mini list build and identify, okay, what are our must-haves, right? And can we all agree on what those must-haves are?
The conversation I like to have with people is, tell me about the absolute worst background possible that you would consider for this job, that could be successful at this job. Okay, so this is the absolute bare minimum somebody would need in order to be barely successful. All right, let's talk to everybody with that and above. Because if you tell me about the background of somebody who's wildly successful, tell me about the absolute perfect skill set in order to excel at this job. The window's about this big. But if you say, okay, I want to talk to everybody who could barely do this job and above, then your window is so much bigger, and then you get to focus on all of this stuff. Because when you search for people, all you can really search for at the beginning is their background. It's not until you talk to them that you can dig into everything else. And that's the stuff that usually is most important to a person's potential for incredible success with an organization.
I think this is a good segue to our final question of the discussion, which is when it comes to creating that culture that attracts and retains talent, what is an actionable piece of advice that you would give that manufacturers, industrial companies, folks in this industry, that they could implement today or tomorrow or very quickly? Travis, let's go down and then we'll work our way back this way.
I think I'm going to give you a really bad answer on this. I don't think there's any one thing they can do when they get back from this show or after listening to this episode that's going to have a dramatic impact in the near future. But it's a choice. It's the choice to be able to articulate your values. as a leader in an organization or somebody supporting the leader, and if your leader can't articulate your company's values, if you're supporting that leader, you need to get them to be able to do it, because that is the essence of what the culture is. What are the values of your organization, and how do people who hold those values work together? So I guess that is the one thing. Either be able to articulate it, and if you can't, start.
I actually think that's a great answer, because you gave the disclaimer that you can't go back tomorrow and make a dramatic shift. But a great step one is to make sure that you can articulate those values. So great way to start us off. Ann, what would you add?
Really quickly, I agree with Travis. I mean, culture change is from the top down, and it is not an overnight quick fix. I do think that when you're working, especially if you're in HR or a department like that, and you're having this battle, right, with your ops, I think one thing that you can do is you can start collecting data. You can start collecting people analytics. You can start defining, okay, yes, we do have a culture problem, and then bring that data and present it, just like we would with machinery. So,
What kind of data are you collecting?
attendance, retention. Okay, when you place a job, how long does it take to fill? What's the reason for the fill? Those kinds of things.
One thing I'll add, I'm actually going to take a different spin, because Travis, I really like the way you did it. I think there's some companies that probably really need to upgrade their culture. Maybe it's not where it needs to be today. I'm going to answer this for the folks that maybe have a good culture but just haven't showcased it the right way yet. And my advice is to showcase it. Like, I give this example all the time. Travis, you talked about this. This is a great tool for getting information about your culture out there. Film a video, send a tweet, whatever it is. There are different ways you can start getting that message out on a regular basis and make it a consistent message, whether it's your CEO that's sharing that message, whether it's a more junior team member sharing that message. I think going back to what we talked about earlier, culture really is the embodiment of values and a number of different people there, and there are a lot of ways to get that out on a regular basis through social media, through blogging, through videos, whatever it may be. So great advice across the board. Thank you both for kicking off our first main discussion here at Automate Live. We're going to be back for more really soon. I'm Chris Lukey with Manufacturing Happy Hour. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
What I'm holding here is a piece of history. It was written in 1974-75 time frame by my predecessor, Bernard Sallet, and really is a roadmap for how we've grown to be successful from a very early start with not a lot of financials to a very successful trade association.
Hello, I'm Bill Shatner, and I've been learning about robots. Yes, robots, and particularly about the very important part they play in industry. And we'll begin right over here with a robot that meets the most often used and very official sounding definition of industrial robot. Are you ready for this? Industrial robot.
Would you welcome Joe Engelberger? We can program the machine to do a commercial.
The list of tasks that industrial robots can do, and do superlatively well, is growing all the time.
The World Robot Conference, the event has become the biggest and the most international.
There's so many more applications in so many more industries that we've never seen before.
What about the future for automation? There seems to be no limit. Perhaps automation can lead to a better life for all of us. I know what I think. How about you?
So, can you believe it? 50 years of A3?
It's amazing. You think about 50 years and it sounds like a big number, but it went by so fast.
It really did. I mean, I'm amazed at
how quickly 50 years goes by. It's like crazy that we're here this big of an anniversary. What was it like for you when we broke away from SME? That had to be terrifying.
It was a big decision on my part. With a family and a future I thought I had at SME, I wasn't sure in the beginning, but something told me this could be a good thing. RIA started in 1974. It was a struggle in the beginning. There was a technical group within the Society of Manufacturing Engineers dealing with robotics and automation. SME, being a well-known large individual member society, took on the task of identifying robotics as a future business. We ended up with a meeting in Detroit in a smoke-filled room with about 7 or 8 competitors, companies like Unimation, IBM, Bendix, and General Electric. These were guys that never met before. It was the formative stage of getting the association established. And the father of the robotics industry, Joe Engelberger, finally came on board, and we started the association. Thanks to SME, they put up some seed money and staff, and we officially separated in 1983, and that's when I became the head of RIA staff.
Don was a tremendous leader. He put together a great team of people to start the association.
Don was the person with the vision for the Robot Industry Association and then the subsequent associations. Don was a master communicator, connecting up the RIA with its partners like the groups in Japan, the groups in Europe, groups in US to work together for the benefit of the industry.
If they can get in a room and share some of the struggles and accomplishments that they've had over the years, you learn from that. It really did provide a home for an industry that was, very young in its beginning, but now is mature and see all kinds of things moving towards automation and robotics that might not have been foreseen, 50 years ago.
When RIA was formed and robotics was supposed to be the next industrial revolution, there were a lot of robots being purchased by the automotive industry. They were the largest end user customer. Shortly after, they canceled a whole bunch of orders. Whether they were dissatisfied or whether they couldn't find the right applications or it was too complicated.
People just completely weren't aware of what they were, what they could do, and the right way to use them. The skill set among the people who might support them wasn't really developed at that time.
Ultimately, that led a lot of robotics companies to exit the industry. And that was a major challenge for our trade association. And a lot of people doubted whether the industry would be able to survive.
Through the efforts of the RIA and the member companies, slowly the technology became better known and it started to find uses in other industries in other ways.
We launched a machine vision association in 1984. Over the years, we added several other associations on motion control and artificial intelligence.
It brought together all of the different supplier companies which could deliver the technology. Both the companies that would provide the human capital of people that knew how they operated and could work with them, and then also the companies that physically made the robots themselves. People would begin to understand that they could make their businesses operate more efficiently and more effectively using robot technology.
We did some major things like getting industry to report their statistics every month, and it became a benchmark for the industry to be the source for those business statistics. The idea of moving from hydraulics to electric motor robots, and that really was a technical breakthrough for the industry. And more companies came in and developed new robot equipment doing new applications.
We're the largest trade association in the world focused on robotics, machine vision, AI, motion control, and related automation technologies. That's our sole purpose in life, is to encourage companies to adopt these technologies and teach them how to do that successfully. I remember when we talked about merging the separate associations under one umbrella. And it took us some time to get there, to get to this one A3. From my perspective, it's ultimately worked out that, we're larger than we've ever been. The fact that companies can join just one entity now, and I think that's really allowed us to bring in, big companies like Microsoft and Google and Intel and Amazon. You've got to be pretty proud of the legacy that you left and the way the organization has developed, I hope.
Yeah, very much so. Extremely happy to walk through that Automate show and just say, oh my gosh, look at the size of this.
I think one of Jeff's greatest accomplishments has been the reshaping and reforming of the Automate trade show. The robotics show has been around for decades. Frankly, to a point it was getting stale. We were starting to lose exhibitors. It was at a point where there was actually some proposals to sell the show or cancel the show, and Jeff vehemently disagreed with that approach. But to his credit, he not only disagreed with it, but he doubled down and put his energy and effort into it, and led a whole team that totally reshaped the Automate show to make it what it is today, which is one of the best shows literally in the world for factory automation.
We've gone from approximately 40,000 square feet to pretty close to 400,000 square feet. We've gone from 3,000 attendees to over 30,000 attendees. It's been quite a remarkable turnaround.
Jeff has tirelessly worked to promote the industry and to further the industry, to get robotics and automation noticed on a global stage.
We opened a A3 Mexico office. We became active in China. We've grown the association significantly. We're up to 1,280 company members, I believe. We've got so many good people, so much talent, and I'm very proud to lead this team.
I don't think that there's an organization that's having a bigger impact on increase of productivity, on creating jobs through automation than A3. It's an organization that creates tremendous network. You talk to other A3 people, they'll tell you some of the best friends they made in their life were at A3.
The biggest thing that A3 has been able to do is that it's made automation accessible for anyone, providing education, or simply by connecting people with the right people to make that successful application happen. I think it's just incredible to see how much has been achieved in the beginning by a few and is now being achieved in such bigger ways by so many.
The legacy of A3, I think right now is a bit undetermined, but when you see the response to the trade show and the membership growth and the new activities and the investment that the association can make in the future in an industry that wasn't really supposed to be an industry in the beginning, I'm happy to say that for me to sit back now and watch what's grown to be a viable trade association is a big accomplishment.
I think about that number, 50 years, how long this association has been around, and I think about the impact robotics and automation have had on industries like manufacturing and logistics. And then I think about what's happening today. Application of robotics and AI are going to help solve problems like finding cures for rare cancers, helping improve the environment, and dealing with issues related to hunger and affordable housing. It's going to transform our lives for the better. And that's where A3 comes in. And we're just getting started.
has had a huge impact on the automation industry, and I benefited through my company, General Motors, who used that information, that association, to further develop and advance robotics technology. A3 brought together all of the different supplier companies which could deliver the technology. The human capital of people that knew how they operated and could work with them, and it had a big positive impact on the success of General Motors, and clearly it had a big positive impact on many other companies and the industry as a whole.
Full house. We've got hardware. We've got everything up here today for this next panel. I'm joined by, we've got James Klump with BizLink Robotics Solutions. We have Jennifer St. John with BizLink Systems Automation Training. And my co-host here, Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial. I'm Chris Lukey with Manufacturing Happy Hour. And I think we've got to address not the elephant in the room, but the hardware on the table first of all. So, James, we're going to send it down to you. The LSH Delta. It's part of your cable management portfolio, but tell us, what is it?
Well, let's start with maybe why is cable management, right? So cable management, dress pack systems for robots involve organizing and securing the cables that are needed at the end effector. By implementing effective cable management practices, you can improve reliability and significantly reduce downtime. You're all right, I guess? So the LSH Delta is a retract system, which is part of our cable management system. In addition to the LSH Delta, we developed a base plate and a side bracket. The base plate replaces almost 30 part numbers because it's universal. So it fits many robots and many different systems.
Absolutely. So when we look at the history of like industrial robots, it's been around for 60 years. And of course, cable management then has been around for just as long as that when it's being applied to robots in all these different industries, right? Automation, and automotive, and warehouses. So cable management solutions have been around, but this is something that you guys have developed that's new. So why go out and develop a new solution for cable management?
Yeah, it's interesting. I started out in automation almost 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, and cable management wasn't around.
Yeah.
So it's actually relatively new, I guess in the last 23 years or so.
So what do? They just like use a typical like wire tie, and they really did it
duct tape and right?
a bunch of extra cable that just swings everywhere in the robot.
Right, exactly. So what we did is we interviewed our largest customers, and we asked them what would be ideal in a retract system, right? And from those interviews, we developed the LSH Delta. So ultimately, we decided to use fiber reinforced polymer for strength and lightweight.
And that's a big thing, right? Because I would assume, right, when you're looking at the payload capacity of a robot, you want to make sure, because this is mounted on the robot itself in a lot of cases, so you want to make that as light as possible. So at the end of the day, you don't have to buy a bigger robot to not only manage the end-of-arm tooling, the forcing and the part that you're picking, and then the cable management. You're able to then just basically lower the cost in a lot of cases for the end user who's integrating these solutions.
Right. Well, cost can be thought about in many different ways. Right? You can have cost of a system, you can have cost of downtime, and cost of repair.
Yeah.
And I would suggest the cost of downtime and repair is significantly greater than the cost of managing your cables properly.
Absolutely. And so that kind of goes into the next point, actually, no, I'm going to actually go to you, Chris, for that last one.
Okay. I mean, I wanted to know about the retract system a little bit. What makes this different than other retract systems that are out there right now?
Well, by listening to our customers, we incorporated a multitude of really fantastic features that really increase the speed of utilization. So in this retract system, we have something called tool-free opening, right, which is different than any other retract system. We have something called slide and click, which allows 80 millimeters of optimization. It also allows this to be taken off very easily. Right? In addition to that, because we use fiber reinforced polymer for the universal base plate and the side bracket, we took almost 10 pounds of weight off of the retract system. Now, if you can imagine, you're up on a riser, on a ladder, trying to manage a very heavy component when you're putting cable management system on. 10 pounds is actually quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at the technology, right, the technology's there with the new LSH solution, but I think a lot of times it's the workforce that's making it happen. It's the people who are installing these systems to make sure that they're running efficiently. When you guys are going out there, you're putting new materials, new products, adding more flexibility to the movement. It's really important then to make sure that the people know how to install that properly and to make sure they're managing the system. So Jennifer, with you being the systems training as with part of BizLink, can you offer like what type of training happens when you're working with these customers who are integrating these solutions?
So our systems automations training is PLC, robots, HMI, application training.
Okay.
And basically what we do is we go in and we help skilled trades, electricians, mechanical, operators to be able to decrease their mean time to repair. So we do offer training specifically for BizLink products for installation, maintenance, and then optimization. But we also offer systems automation training to really help people keep that line up and running and decrease any downtime.
So it's much bigger than just the single part. It's the entire solutions that you're helping really get this workforce ready for when we're bringing more automation to the industry. They know how to keep that running efficiently.
Yes, like you know that there's a lot of people who are leaving, skilled trades are leaving because they're retiring, and we had a gap from academia in building those skills. And so now we're trying to help customers in manufacturing and manufacturers to bring those skills back in. And as you know, that is not a skill that is done just at a one time. That is a continuous training experience. And so for us to be able to offer that, we provide automation cells, training cells that we build. We do customized training that's very specific to the robot code and the controls standards for each one of these manufacturers. So we have standard curriculum that we then modify so that it's specific to them. And what we're looking at is the faults and the alarms and understanding what do they need to learn to be able to train those out. And so, we're able to give a significant return on investment through training.
So you talk about, let's say, the results you're looking for. You're trying to help skilled trades folks decrease mean time to repair. You gave a good overview that this is for BizLink and non-BizLink solutions. I guess my question is, when there's a lot of automation training out there, so what would you say sets yours apart?
Well, particularly it's all about troubleshooting for us. So we want the operators and the electricians and the mechanical folks to be able to escalate, be able to identify very, very quickly what is that fault saying and what am I going to do? Am I going to attempt to clear that out with an operator, or am I going to escalate that to electrical and mechanical? Because what we're looking at is we don't want to be down for 20 minutes. So we've got to give them the troubleshooting skills that they can go and, get the line back up and running.
Absolutely. I look at it as our industry has such a dynamic demographic of people that's working in it right now. A lot of that tribal knowledge is leaving the industry.
It is.
So we, and what you guys are doing with the BizLink systems training is you're getting that next workforce ready and getting them the skill sets where they need, where they can easily go and identify what that problem is quickly. Because we all know that we can put in the biggest and best automation solutions and some of the best products that are out there, but if we're not able to then be able to identify what's wrong quickly and get productivity back up, automation doesn't have a big benefit.
Correct.
In the industry. So when we look at what's going forward, why is automation, why is training so exciting right now in 2024? I mean, we look across the Automate show, there's going to be 30,000, maybe even 40,000 people attending this show this week. Why is automation just so exciting right now?
Well, it's because it's here, it's going to be staying here, and for me, training and getting people the skills so that they can make a good livelihood for themselves. Manufacturing, the sexiest stuff is happening in manufacturing. And, we need to bring in new blood and people who are graduating from high school and college. Trades is an amazing opportunity for folks. And so, at BizLink, what we try to do is we have e-learning. We've just announced that. And so we use a whole lot of tools in our bag to be able to engage the employees and to get them jazzed up about automation and being in trades, because it is cool. You make things happen on that floor.
I love that you touched on that, where manufacturing is now sexy in a lot of cases, and it's a great point to add on that. Hey, we need skilled trades workers, because I think a lot of the times when you look at as technology advances to the point where you don't need a 4-year degree certified engineer to program and work on a robotic system. You can have people who have a basic mechatronics degree, or an apprenticeship and electrical engineering or other things like that. So I guess this goes back to you, James or Jennifer, whatever you like to do, go on to this. How can we do a better job, or can you maybe even share a previous experience that you had that gets this next generation excited?
Well, I think right now there are a lot of people who have decided that college is kind of it's a rough go and it's expensive, and so it limits the ability to get into the workforce. Being able to command and learn on apprenticeship, because we offer apprenticeship training and journeyman training or journey person training, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's so exciting, and we're glad to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
I will say that my son graduated from college this year, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
As I sat through graduation, there were 300 kids that with some level of technical degree, and they have to find a place somewhere, and this is a great place to be.
Absolutely.
You know, Jennifer, you gave a great answers to what you're excited about and why you're excited. To wrap it up, James, we need an answer from you as well. Why are you excited about the automation world right now?
Oh,
as
I'm
well?
excited about the automation world because it is really the way things get made now. We have to be able to continue to compete globally in this country, and obviously we have had workforce issues over the last number of years. The population is not increasing significantly, and this brings us the most competitive place that we can be. So that's great.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, James and Jennifer, thanks so much for sharing your insights today. First off, for having some demos live on the table. We always love it when people bring everything right into the booth. So the LSH Delta, you guys showcasing that. It's really exciting, of course, what you guys are doing with training, not just around the technology that BizLink's providing, but across the general industry as well. It's really good. So, of course, if you want to learn more about what's happening here during Automate Live, we encourage you to continue on watching, but we'll see you guys soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
A3 has had a huge impact on the automation industry, and I benefited through my company, General Motors, who used that information, that association, to further develop and advance robotics technology. A3 brought together all of the different supplier companies which could deliver the technology. The human capital, the people that knew how they operated and could work with them, and it had a big positive impact on the success of General Motors, and clearly it had a big positive impact on many other companies and the industry as a whole. A3 has had a huge impact on the automation industry, and I benefited through my company, General Motors, who used that information and that association to further develop and advance robotics technology. A3 brought together all of the different supplier companies which could deliver the technology. The human capital, the people that knew how they operated and could work with them, and it had a big positive impact on the success of General Motors, and clearly it had a big positive impact on many other companies and the industry as a whole.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Automate Live. I'm really excited to be at the desk here now with a bunch of folks that are experts in robotics standards. Joining me from the Association for Advancing Automation are my two colleagues. Starting on the far side of the desk is Maren Rausch. Maren, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And then we have, of course, Carroll Franklin. Carroll, so excited to have you here.
Thanks, Jen. It was a great opportunity.
And then, of course, we've got Bill Edwards, and we've got a couple titles for Bill. He is the vice chair of the R1506 committee, and you are the senior manager of collaborative robots at Yaskawa Motoman. So let's dive in. Let's talk about some standards. Let's just start really basic. Carroll, why are standards so important in this industry and to A3?
Yeah, so standards are very important because they help reduce trade barriers, both across across a large country like the U.S., but also internationally. So depending on which type of standard you're talking about, but regardless, the point is to reduce trade barriers and make it easier for products that comply with the given standard to find a market. And so some of the examples that we like to use are, outside of our industry, something like USB drives. We used to pass those around at our ISO standards, and people from all over the world, different countries, would have be able to use that same thing. And that's because there's ISO standards about USB drives. Well, likewise, in our industry, we have ANSI and ISO standards for robotics. And that helps the entire ecosystem of robotics users, manufacturers, and everybody else to have products that will work well together. And the great thing about standards from my point of view is that it's a voluntary association of interested parties who are working together to achieve a certain goal, and voluntarily. So nobody's forcing them to do it. They just see the value of it economically.
Absolutely. And that's, of course, from, our perspective as A3, the Association for Advancing Automation. Carroll, you're very instrumental, along with the rest of the team, are actually creating these standards. As you are, Bill, on the committee. Can you speak to that a little bit from the industry point of view? Why are standards so important?
I think technology is moving at such a rapid pace. We view these standards as foundational documents. And I really think that it's that foundation is what we're going to see a lot of people grow and learn on in the future.
1,000%. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about A3 since we are here at Automate. Why is A3 been seen as a leader in creating these standards?
Yeah, so in our standards efforts, as I said, we work mainly in the ANSI and ISO frameworks. And actually, 40-some years ago, we initially began working on the first standard for industrial robot safety, R1506. And I believe that effort started in 1982. And so we've continually managed the committee that runs that standard since 1982. And the reason we did that, the reason we undertook that mission was because we realized as an industry that keeping people safe around robots when they're there to work, the people are there to work. For them to have that opportunity, they shouldn't have to subject themselves to unsafe conditions. And so keeping people safe around robots was going to be a real ticket of entry for the success of our industry. And so that's why we took it upon ourselves, like I said, voluntarily registered as a standards developing organization with ANSI and began working on R1506. And so we've kept that standard updated over the years. And actually, I'm going to hand it over to Maren for a moment, because in the early 2000s, we took the R1506 of 99 and took it to ISO. And so the virtue of taking it to ISO, I'm going to let Maren speak to that.
Tell us, Maren.
Okay. Yeah. So moving R1506, which was the industrial robot safety standard, into an international forum was achieved by putting it through the ISO process, which is the International Organization for Standardization. And we have a number of different countries that participate in ISO, pretty much all of Europe, Japan, Brazil, trying to think Korea. There's more than that. So by pulling that knowledge that's in that standard into the ISO standard, we got these international viewpoints to help make it even better. So, every country has a slightly different way of working, and to have them agree to reach consensus on what the requirements should be for industrial robots means that we have a more robust document, and it's protecting people wherever the standard is used. And then also having this sense of harmonization from the different countries means that they're not battling over, our country's standard is better than your country's standard. We're all using ISO, and it may be called something different within our own countries, because we have things that are called national standards, where we adopt an ISO standard as in America, an American national standard. But the requirements are the same, and it really helps manufacturers of technology streamline their sales and distribution processes, where they don't have to make different models to meet different standards. They can meet one line of requirements and get their products into the market faster and have better products as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and it is a challenging process. I mean, we're talking, it's very detailed. It takes a long time. It's a lot of collaboration across industries and different regulatory agencies and countries. So what are some of those challenges in creating these standards? Carroll, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, sure. So as Maren mentioned, when we're seeking consensus. So again, development of these standards is voluntary, and also compliance with the standards is voluntary. And the only reason anyone would comply with a voluntary standard is because they think it meets their needs. And so that has to be developed through a process of consensus. We have to get broad agreement. We have to keep talking about a particular topic until we get broad agreement amongst all the people in the room. And so, that's what makes the standard so valuable too. That's what makes it take a long time, but it's also what makes it so valuable. And so, but again, it's something that a manufacturer can take, and as Maren mentioned, you can use it with minimal changes around the world. So.
Oh, absolutely. And from my vantage point, I think that's what I see as the biggest challenge, is just the time it takes to, from the time we recognize the need, we go through the consensus process, which is the expression goes, iron sharpens iron. So we have a lot of learned experts around the table. We all have opinions, and everything is valid, and we discuss those. And over time, we hone that, and hopefully what we produce is a product that is really meets the industry's needs. And unfortunately, that does take a little bit amount of time to do it, but we're all richer for the experience, for
Absolutely.
sure. So
It's worth that extra effort.
Absolutely.
All of the international travel that you all do and get everybody on the same page. Bill, how do you see the role of standards evolving in the future?
Well, I was just having an interesting conversation with some of the folks from A3 this morning, and Carol and I were talking, and I said, I really see, as I mentioned earlier, that standards are foundational documents, and as we see a lot of the workforce beginning to leave and retire, we have this attrition. Well, this has created a really large learning gap in the workforce, and a lot of my generation, we came up as robotics were becoming popular, so a lot of what we learned was tribal knowledge. Well, we've been pouring over the years, a lot of what we've learned, a lot of what we've brought into the industry, a lot of things that we've done have found their way now into the standards. So these standards are now foundational documents that the next generation, I think, can really use and grow from. And basically, they don't have to learn everything we did. It's in the standard.
Right. You did, all the hard work is done. The
I wouldn't say
foundation
that.
is there.
They learned it the hard
I wouldn't
way.
say that. We've given them enough at least to give them a good start, I think.
The harder work now begins. Okay, so how can individuals and companies in the industry actively contribute and benefit from the standards? Who wants to take that?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I'll love to
Yeah.
take this one.
Yeah.
So having come from industry and having participated, and now I find myself as vice chair of the committee.
Yeah.
And that's an honor, really, when you deal with the kind of people that I've worked with over the years. I would say get involved. Really, I think that's the key. The real value is having a chance to sit down and learn the why behind why something's in a standard and having those conversations, because I think that's really where the learning takes place. It isn't so much as what's written on the page, it's understanding why it's on the page to begin with. And for me, I find that of immense benefit as I'm trying to explain to people why things are what they are and what they should do moving forward. So the real benefit to an employer and even to an employee is that knowledge, what we bring to the table, and then what we bring back to our company and our customers.
Absolutely. I think that makes so much sense, just not even in the standards world, just generally, even if I'm trying to get a point across to somebody, explaining that why and kind of seeing the big picture, where are we trying to get to, that is so helpful. So Carroll, do you have anything that you would add to that? How can folks get involved? Can they just email you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, honestly, in A3's role is we are the administrator and coordinator of these standards. The actual work is done by the experts. So we can't actually produce a standard unless companies permit and support their employees to come to the meetings, spend time in the meetings, and travel. And so we need companies to recognize the value of the task we're asking people to do, and to sort of generously donate their people's expertise, because actually it's going to benefit you in the long run. And so people like Bill, who's been involved since forever, and he's just been a tremendous, vital participant in our discussions. So if you want to get involved, we, as an ANSI accredited standards developing organization, we actually have to follow ANSI's rules in how we manage our committees. And ANSI's rules are meant to ensure fairness and transparency and access to basically anyone who is is an interested party in the work. So if you think you have a compelling interest in this work, which is the case if you're a robot manufacturer, a supplier to the robotics industry, a robot user, someone who researches robotics, if you think you're an interested party in that, then you have a right to come to the table. And how you do that for our particular committees is you email one of us, Zomar or me, and we will direct you to our online application form, or you can actually find it on automate.org under the standards tab, and just fill out that form, and then one of us will get back to you and we'll invite you to our next meeting.
Awesome. Yeah, there's so much great information about the standards on automate.org, including the standards themselves. You can actually purchase them. And I also wanted to mention, just for folks out there, you can also come to the International Robot Safety Conference in the fall.
That's a big one.
I'm sure you have been all deeply involved in making that event such a success every year. Do you want to just say a quick word about why that's a great event for people to come to in the fall?
Yeah, I spoke at last year's IRSC, and I had an absolute blast. It was great to actually network. I think that's part of it, is we have a chance to sit down and talk to a lot of the industry experts that are there and ask them any questions that you may have. And as I said during the presentation I have, we're all colleagues at these events. The competition, sure, we compete outside of those events, but when we're in these events and we're in these meetings, we're colleagues, and we're there to learn and assist each other, and that's really what it's all about, and I think that's what makes these things so valuable.
I will say, just coming from the outside and seeing that event for the first time, it is so collaborative, so communal, and it really does paint the picture. Everyone is deeply passionate about keeping humans safe while they're working with these machines.
And we do try to keep it new so that a lot of people that come to IRSC are newer to the safety environment, and so they're learning some of that foundational information at the conference. But then we do every year try to bring in new and exciting speakers for those people who have attended IRSC in the past. And with time, we've become, it's always been the International Robot Safety Conference, but we're getting heavier on the international side of things and trying to represent that group of constituents as well.
That's right. It's going to be great. All right. Well, this has been lovely. Thank you all so much for coming on Automate Live today and talking about standards and why you're so passionate and why it's so important in this industry. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate it as well. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Yep.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks.
That's it. We'll be back here later with more today.
A3 has had a huge impact on the automation industry, and I benefited through my company, General Motors, who used that information, that association, to further develop and advance robotics technology. A3 brought together all the different supplier companies which could deliver the technology. The human capital, the people that knew how they operated and could work with them, and it had a big positive impact on the success of General Motors, and clearly it had a big positive impact on many other companies and the industry as a whole. has had a huge impact on the automation industry, and I benefited through my company, General Motors, who used that information, that association, to further develop and advance robotics technology. A3 brought together all of the different supplier companies which could deliver the technology. The human capital of people that knew how they operated and could work with them, and it had a big positive impact on the success of General Motors, and clearly it had a big positive impact on many other companies and the industry as a whole. had a huge impact on the automation industry, and I benefited through my company, General Motors, who used that information, that association, to further develop and advance robotics technology. A3 brought together all of the different supplier companies which could deliver the technology. The human capital, the people that knew how they operated and could work with them, and it had a big positive impact on the success of General Motors, and clearly it had a big positive impact on many other companies and the industry as a whole.